Do your relics look like this? Well, my relics used to look like that too. Actually, they still do. There is no fix for RNG in this game. Unfortunately, all of those 50/50s are still just as unwinnable as your Valorant games. But there are things that you can do to not waste resources on bad relics. And on top of that, there's some new information that I haven't seen many people talking about yet that I wanted to share with you all. So a while ago, a ton of people contributed to a community project to try to find the approximate drop rates of specific relics. More precisely, they wanted to know the odds of getting each stat for each set piece, like if getting crit damage is actually hard or if you're just unlucky. At this point in Star Rail, farming for relics opens up a fork in the road for your progression. On one path, you get the right main stat but terrible substats, and on the other, you get Guard of Weathering Snow. This illusion of choice is what results in you getting pegged by different elites and bosses, but at least one of those is Kafka, am I right? In Genshin Impact, stats have different weights on different pieces, and it can be difficult to farm for the right stuff. Well, unsurprisingly, Honkai Star Rail is made by the same company and has a similar problem. Substats seem to be unweighted in this game, with the exception of min and max rolls, where relics have a much higher chance to roll the minimum stat than the maximum stat. According to large data samples collected on 2 different occasions by the community, however, main stats are weighted pretty dang heavily. From this community project, here are some rough stats on how likely you are to get a specific relic for a specific set in a run of Trailblaze power. Now keep in mind this is all approximations because we don't have any in-game code that confirms the exact numbers or anything like that, but based on data collection alone, the rarest relics in the game are crit rate, crit damage, healing bonus, and effect hit rate body pieces, and energy regen ropes, which are all roughly equal odds. The rarest relics after those are speed boots, and after that, getting the right element on a sphere. Your odds of getting any elemental sphere are pretty high, but even going for one specific element on one specific set isn't going to be as rare as getting a crit body piece or energy regen rope. So no, you're not crazy. The black cat crossing the street, the time you crossed under a ladder, the time where you were 15 and you shattered 17 mirrors in an abandoned dog show building that was meant to be demolished a month out, those don't actually matter. Your main stats were meant to be that bad. At least that's what I'm gonna keep telling myself. Again, keep in mind that these are approximations based on a lot of community contributions, so the numbers could be a tad off. It is just collected data at the end of the day. But it's pretty much in line with what I've experienced, and I'm sure some of you are in the same sinking ship. Or maybe you just farm the prettiest set for the pretty anime men and women. Speaking of which, you know what's better than anime girls with pretty matching relics? Anime girls with guns. Introducing Snowbreak Containment Zone, a 3D sci-fi RPG shooter with an engaging story, skill-intensive combat, and amazing character designs. Snowbreak Containment Zone is set in the year 2057, where a calamity caused nearby cities to be demolished. Your job is to join the human anti-Titan armed forces and take care of the Titans and other factions. Now you might be wondering, Brax, what does this actually mean? In short, you kill bad guys playing as pretty women with big guns. Except for some of them who have small guns like pistols, or longer, skinnier guns like snipers and shotguns.
That's quite big.
Fenny is my current hyperfixation because of her twin tails, red eyes, and insatiable bloodlust. I also really like Acacia, because size doesn't matter. The boss fights in Snowbreak are amazing, and there's also a co-op roguelite mode that lets you play challenging content with your friends. And if you've noticed that your friend has an orange tier character that you want, you're actually in luck, because you can pick up one of these 5 orange tier characters to recruit to your roster for absolutely free right now. The devs of Snowbreak also spent a lot of time listening to player feedback from previous beta tests and made a lot of great changes to the game to improve the story and progression systems. For example, after feedback, the devs added a cover system with crouch mechanics to be able to play with more intent and strategy. You can use my link in the description down below to download Snowbreak Containment Zone on PC and mobile with crossplay, and if you start now, you'll get some awesome launch rewards. Also, use this redemption code on screen now for some extra rewards. Download today and start Snowbreak Containment Zone. So anyways, what do we do with all this information? Well, there's 2 ways you can improve your account going forward. And some of you will already know these, but I recommend sticking around because you might learn something new. And if not, then put this video on while you sleep or something so my stats go up. First off, let's talk about self-modeling resin. You should try to use these wisely because getting one of these is harder than getting a girlfriend. Because of the stat spreads in the data we were given, odds are the last pieces you'll get are crit, outgoing healing, or effect hit rate body pieces, or an energy regen rope. Between the body piece farming and the rope farming, you'll probably spend most of the time farming Tears of the Kingdom because it doesn't have a daily play limit. Since you have more set pieces to collect from Caverns of Corrosion, odds are you're spending less Trailblaze power in Simulated Universe. Everyone's situation is different, but I'd guess that you need an energy regen rope because you still don't have one, or the one you do have is all terrible substats. So normally, I would say energy regen rope is the best way to spend your self-modeling resin. But with that said, crit, outgoing healing, and effect hit rate pieces are just as rare, technically speaking, and a good pick. And if you're only missing one piece of any character's best in slot, you can always just use it on that to get that stat and set piece. Most of the time, it's going to be best for you to avoid making headpieces, hands, boots, and spheres with your self-modeling resin, unless that's literally just the last piece that you need for your character. Now, outside of self-modeling resin tips, there are other things that you can do to try to avoid wasting resources on pieces that aren't as good for you, and make sure that you are only enhancing the right pieces. So the second thing that you can do is actually really straightforward. All you have to do is just swipe.
And am I detecting someone being a shit?
If you swipe, you can get more runs per day, which is more chances to get good pieces. It's really just that easy. Just look how it worked out for Code and Fog. Just kidding, that doesn't work either. To try and make sure that I can showcase all of the characters correctly for my guides, I've swiped every day on my beta account to try and get good pieces, and I no longer believe in God. So what is in your control? Well, for starters, the relics you actually farm for matter a lot. In every Cavern of Corrosion, there's basically one good set and one less used or mid set. The main exception to this is the lightning set domain, which also has gear for your preservation units. But outside of that, you don't actually have too many good options. I do recommend farming wild wheat since the 2-piece is almost always good. And when that new speed 2-piece set comes out, oh wait, that's actually already out now by the time I'm recording this. That's also gonna be one that's worth farming too. But mostly, you'll want to be efficient with your simulated universe runs. World 3 is what I've found to be the most efficient overall, with a good general attack boost set for your team and high attack boost DPS set. The two new planar ornament sets that give you crit rate and effect resistance are also pretty solid as well, but I'd still say World 3 is the most efficient. Also, the script was written before the patch, and I'm honestly not really sure why Hoyoverse did this, but they just like hid the stats from us on the new sets. These games are amazing, but it's really hard to make content like this when they keep more secrets than the Bush administration, and I really don't understand why they did it for this specific planar set. Anyways, small tangent there, but I really hope they never do that again. Now, there's a bunch of planar sets that you could make arguments for, and I'll let you guys PvP in the comments if you want to, but I want to talk about what I think is actually even more important, which is choosing pieces to actually roll on. I'm sure that you've been in a place before where you spend 3 to 4 weeks trying to get one crit rate body piece, and then you finally get it, and it looks like this. Well, if you're just starting to build characters, you can always level it just to have a piece to make your life easier. But if you really want to be efficient, you should only really roll for pieces with good substats. Stats are more important than sets most of the time, and if you have to mix 2-piece sets until you get the right main stat with good substats, that's totally fine. Let's say you're building Best Girl. You're looking to dodge all flat stats, effect hit rate and effect resistance, defense, and HP subs if possible. Things like crit rate and damage, break effect, attack percent, and speed are all strong stats for her pieces. So if you find a piece with 3 or more good substats, you're on the right track. If you didn't know, a 5-star relic can either start with 3 or 4 substats by default. And every 3 levels that you level up a relic, you get a boost to one of those substats, and if the piece started with 3 substats, you'll just get a 4th substat instead of a boost to a pre-existing stat. If a piece starts with 4 substats, even if only 2 of them are good, sometimes I'll roll on it anyways, because you're technically getting 1 extra substat roll worth of stats if you start with 4 instead of 3. In Best Girl's case, you're hoping that it rolls into one of her good substats, that is crit rate and damage, break effect, attack percent, and speed. An absolutely amazing piece will get 5 good stat rolls. A great piece will get 4, and a good piece will get the majority good rolls, which is at least 3. 3 is what I settle for because Lady Luck abandoned me when I chose to play gacha games as a career. For the rolling process, I recommend bringing the piece to level 9. At level 9, if all 3 stat rolls have hit good stats, then congrats, you've got yourself a solid relic in my opinion. Maybe the Susong piece hits 2 crit stats and an attack roll. I would say that's pretty solid. However, if only 2 out of your 3 rolls are good substats, then I would actually roll it to plus 12 for another shot at a good roll if I'm feeling lucky. And if you hit a 3rd good roll on that plus 12, then I'd say you have a pretty solid piece that you can take to 15. Or if I'm low on resources, I'll leave it be for another time or if I get really desperate. Personally, I would not not max a piece out unless it's got at least 3 good rolls, unless you're really desperate for the 4 set to be finished. The longer you play the game, the more pieces you'll start to accumulate with 3, 4, and 5 good substat rolls. Only hitting 1 good substat by +9 just isn't great, and at that point I'd fodder the piece. If you want to take it step by step to be extra safe, you could even only go to +6 and see if you get a good substat in those first 2 batches of 3 levels. Like I said earlier, you can not control your luck in this game, but you can choose what you're betting on. Waiting for a piece with decent substats, even if it's not the right set, can actually end up being more lucrative in the long run just because it'll save you resources on leveling pieces that you'll just end up replacing in the future. For reference, for my Memory of Chaos pushes, I barely have any characters on 4-piece sets because I have so many random set pieces that got good rolls, but I barely have any 4-piece sets that are complete. Most of the time, stats are more important than sets, and if you're really careful on which pieces you actually choose to roll, you'll not only see better results overall, but you'll also save a lot of resources. Don't get me wrong, sometimes just leveling up a piece to get the main stat is pretty important, but when you start building your damage dealers and you notice that their crit ratios are absolutely abysmal, you're gonna have to really start thinking about artifact substat rolls, or relic substat rolls, sorry, Genshin brain rot. So I hope that these tips are helpful for you. If you enjoyed the video, it would mean a ton to me if you were able to like this video and subscribe to the channel, just because we're so close to 200K. And also, tell me what your favorite color is, unless your name is Jacob, you were born on August 16th, you have an alarm set for 6:30 a.m., or if your favorite color is a shade of lime green. Then I really don't want to hear about it.